Hi everyone, this is Jim Monaco. I am just sharing my screen so you can see some of the way I formed my interview transcripts for vaping. I am coming at you from a conference, so I apologize I don't have my camera on, but this will be like a little voiceover. So this document, which I've uploaded in our discussion board, is just my research protocol, some of the ethical considerations that we took into place. So Lucas and I are both using this in our as our protocol. This is very standard for, some sort of qualitative interview study. I just lay out that each of the participants were informed of the purpose of the study, and the intent of the study, that they, were able to withdraw at any point. They could stop the interview process. Their confidentiality would be maintained by pseudonym being used, and anything that was recorded for transcription purposes would be destroyed. It's not going to be out there in the public sphere for anyone to kind of come across. Uh, all of the participants were informed of the consent and signed off and returned that to me. And each of the interviews were then recorded on my phone and then transcribed verbatim. I do note that there were some minor edits, which you'll see as I scroll down, just to take out, any sort of like pauses that participants made or phrases like just eliminate those so it's just a clean transcript. Here's the transcript. So again, I interviewed three participants. Eduardo is the first participant, which is a pseudonym. Started off with a mini participant profile just so the reader can get a little bit of a background of who this particular participant is. And again, also note here that a pseudonym was used so that we know that this Eduardo is not the participant's actual name. The format is very simple Q&A style with the question in bold and then the participant's answer. And again, that is for the most part verbatim what that participant said. However, I just like I mentioned before, just quickly edited some of the like I'm saying right now just out just to make it a clean transcript. So, very simple format here as you see. So this is all of Eduardo's interview. Then we come to Alyssa. Again, participant profile, go through a little bit of information about Alyssa and remind the reader that this is a pseudonym, and then the same format, all of the same questions asked of every participant, very important in this type of research. And as you see, just again, the same Q&A format with the question in bold and the answer below that. And then finally, my third interviewee, Junior, again, a little participant profile, talking a little bit about who that person is and reminding the reader at the very end of the participant profile, pseudonym is used. Same format here. Same questions asked of this third participant, Junior, and all the responses Q&A, Q bolded. So this is just, a very quick kind of rundown of what my interview results are. This document is uploaded for you to read a little bit more in depth. In terms of how I use sensory cues in the vaping interviews, I know that we were supposed to conduct an interview just going through the sensory cues. So I actually, when conducting the interviews, I did this before I came on um, my conference, so I was really sort of working fast and had some access to these particular people. So I did not go through the sensory cues with them, but I intentionally applied Vijay Kumar's framework from sensory cues, signals, and messages, really more to just create an environment where participants felt safe and calm and expressive. Um, I use passive sensory cues mainly through my tone, the setting, the pacing, and then the interview space, which I was able to conduct in person. It was designed just to feel non-judgmental and to feel familiar to all of the participants. I try to use a calm voice, steady rhythm, all kind of cues of safety. And I invited participants like Eduardo and Alyssa and Junior, just to speak openly about sensitive topics such as stress and family and addiction. So these are, things you want to create some sort of holding environment and safe space. I also incorporated active signals, like Kumar talks about. What that means is, I showed engagement, I showed empathy, verbal affirmations like, "Hey, I hear you," but really trying to be quiet and just listen. There were deliberate pauses after any sort of emotional moment, and that really functioned as real-time signals that I was present, I was attuned to what they were saying, and I think these signals really reinforce connection and trust. And then finally, I just used explicit messages at the beginning and each end of each interview, like any sort of clear statement explaining the confidentiality, the purpose of this particular study, and just offered gratitude and offered appreciation for folks giving up their time. Everyone's busy, and I really appreciated that. And I think that, these messages offered transparency and gave some sort of closure, and it really gave participants a sense of agency and reassurance. So I think ultimately, just by aligning the interview approach with the sensory cues framework, I recognized that each of these type of cues really shape honesty, they shape depth in the participants' responses. And the more empathetic and the more um, intentionality that uh, was designed for the environment, I feel like the more authentic and more meaningful the data became. So, hope that kind of gives you a little bit of insight into this process and how I've been using sort of the framework from Vijay Kumar's work into the interviews, into the, even the survey information, the way that we approach that. So, thanks so much for listening. Looking forward to working with everyone and looking at your products as you go along. And feel free to reach out. Thanks so much.